Live from New York City, Michael Scott Shannon.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, my God. I'll tell you what, that's quite a thrill to watch that. I haven't seen it in a while.
Can you turn Scott up a bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Thank you. I'm not used to having to turn myself up. I can hear pretty well. But it was quite an adventure to watch it with you people, and thank you for sitting through it, those of you who did. It was quite an experience for me because I grew up, as you could probably tell, loving the business of radio, and I'm sure many of you out there shared the same beginnings that I did. I discovered music first, and then the music connected me with radio, and from then on, it was just a race to get where I wanted to go. And thank the Lord, I was blessed with a lot of great luck and working with a lot of great people. From the time I got into radio, I would interview these veterans that I worked with, and I would ask them questions and try to find out what they knew about radio. I would just pick their brains and keep notes about what worked for people, what didn't work for people. And then the other thing that was, I think, very valuable to me was I grew up a radio listener. From the time I was a young man, I had a little transistor radio with me everywhere I went. I still have that transistor radio, and I keep it in my den because I look over at it and I think that's where I started. And I try never to forget what I went through and how I got where I am today. It's a very emotional thing to me, radio. And as you can tell, a connection that is still with me. I still get up in the morning and the first 10, 15 minutes suck, because I'm up at 3:15 in the morning. But after that, the love returns. It's just, I don't know. It's something very, very special. I always, I had my mom drop me off. I think that was in the movie. I kind of went through it in my head. And I would just stand in front of this window and watch this guy be a DJ for 2 hours, 3 hours. Now, that's pretty stupid if you think about it. But and I said, man, I could do that. That's a great job to have. You play the songs you like, you're talking to people, and you don't have to look at them. You just sit in a room. I was a very shy kid. I grew up a service brat. For those of you who know what that is, your father's in one of the services and you travel all around the world, but you don't ever get any friends. You don't get to know anybody. So you become your own best friend. And, it just, when radio entered my life, it was like I had a new friend. And I think a lot of that childhood listening led to my ability to be able to program and figure out what people wanted to hear. I think that was an awful lot to do with it, but it was a rocky road getting there. And I remember when I first got into radio, I had one of these a plastic briefcase so I could look like a businessman. It was some kind of plastic. I bought it at a big, like a Kmart or one of those stores, and I took the top 100 markets out of the back of a broadcasting magazine, the top 100 markets in America, and I started at number like 128, something like that. And as I moved up, I would put a line through, and I would make sure my next step went up a city. So I was in Columbus, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee. Then I went to Nashville, Tennessee, where I started programming when I was like, I guess, 23 years old. That was my first job. And I really didn't want to be a program director. I just didn't want someone else to tell me what to do that didn't love it as much as me. So I said, well, wait a minute, while you're interviewing, can I try to get the job? And yeah, well, you never showed any interest before, Super Shan. That was my name at that time. And he, surprisingly, he said, well, what I want you to do is make a thesis or a report telling me what you would do with the radio station. Where would you take it? And we had a sister station in another town in Tennessee, Knoxville, and he sent me there, and I wrote down, listening in a hotel room, and I told him all the things that were wrong with that station. And sure enough, he said, "You're the program director." I said, "Oh crap! What the hell am I going to do now?" And I kind of, as I said, fake it till you make it. And it worked out okay. And I want to thank John Simons for having me on today, and everybody here at Radio Days. Thank you for, like I said, sitting through that movie. And John has some very intense questions, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, this is going to be the easiest interview I've ever done, Scott, because you just tell such great stories. The one question I did want to ask, when I introduced it, I said, I don't think anyone else will ever go from worst to first in 74 days. Do you think it could happen again?
No one thought it could happen then, so I would imagine it could happen again. There's a lot. Back then, you didn't have as many specific formats. You had an R&B station, you had a dance station, you had an easy listening station, you had a country station, but they were afraid. They thought back then that those were separate from top 40 formats. When they got more popular, they borrowed all the trappings of a top 40 station, but they played different music. And when they found out the secrets of top 40 format programming, then they did better in the ratings. And I think I was up against an R&B station here that already had discovered that particular vein, but the other stations hadn't, but it just, I don't think it could happen again, but I wouldn't rule it out.
So I was quite interested in the fact that I think you're naturally quite a shy person.
Yeah.
And I have this theory that when I'm talking to guys at radio stations, that the best personalities are actually extroverted introverts. And I think that's what you are.
Yeah, I appreciate lying on your couch. But you, believe it or not, you're close. I think on the money, because I remember seeing a picture. I subscribed to Billboard magazine. When I describe, I would ride my Schwinn bicycle down to this bookstore that carried Billboard, and with my paper route money, I would purchase the actual Billboard magazine and read Vox Jocks with Claude Hall, this guy who wrote that. And they would show pictures of these guys working. And I was attracted to some guy working in Fargo, North Dakota, in a very tiny room. I don't like big control rooms. I like small personal rooms. I keep the lights down, and I don't like a lot of people coming in. I don't like a window looking at me. I just like this. I like the microphone. And it gives me a great thrill to be able to do that.
You had a great job in Tampa. Why did you take the job in the first place?
They had been calling me, and I was living the dream. We were number one in every single demo there. It was an amazing story. I mean, usually the stations who specialize in 12 to 24 and then 25 to 54. Our station was number one in every single category. We had like a 24 share in the morning of adults. And I was the king of the town, the single guy. Man, I couldn't drink enough Canadian Club, and I couldn't meet enough women. It was crazy. And then I ran into this. It was bad. I look back at that time, I thought it was a great way to live. And now I look back and maybe that wasn't so healthy. But I had met this young lady who I kind of liked, and I did my best to try to talk myself out of it. Man, you don't have time for just one. What are you, nuts? There's all kinds of them out there. And so anyway, they had been calling me to come and interview for this job, and I just didn't return the call. I had about a stack of those pink slips, And you call back this guy in Cleveland. It was a small company. It was they didn't have any major stations. Cleveland was their biggest market. And then finally, a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, you need to go and talk to these people. They want to talk to you." And I said, "Well, I'm pretty happy here." He said, "No, you need to go and just go listen to them." So I went up there and saw it in the movie, and it was an aborted interview. And then when I went to the elevator, it all changed. So and the guy wanted me to stay overnight and go to the attorney's office and do a contract in the morning. I got to be back on the air in Tampa. I got to go. What are you talking about? I got a responsibility. And so they rushed me. They went downstairs, and there's a bar in the bottom of this building and we had a couple of cocktails. And he turned over the placemat, and he wrote out a little contract there. And I signed it, and I got on the plane, and I cried. I did, what in the F am I going to do in New York? I said, "What are you, crazy? You got a great job here. And what are you going to do?" And after I kind of got off the pity pot, so to speak, I started thinking on the plane. And one of my, I have things that I share with other people that I work with that want to be a programmer or a successful disc jockey. And one of the things that I'm pretty well known for telling people is you got to have a plan. And with a plan, you can beat a better radio station. You can out program a programmer who's better than you if you have a better plan. And that's what I did. I opened that back then it was Radio and Records magazine, and I looked at some of the other numbers in this, and I started working on a plan. And I didn't know anything about New York. I hadn't lived there. I certainly didn't know anything about radio, but I put together this plan. I started the plan on the plane, and I already had, I knew the morning show was safe. I was going to do the same morning show I was doing in Tampa, but retool it so it would fit New York. And so what I did was they had the 5 boroughs. I think, did you see this in the movie? I think you did. The 5 boroughs, and that's where the population was. But in New Jersey, they had a lot of people. On Long Island, they had a lot of people. Westchester County up north, they had a lot of people. So I put all those people together, and I had a pretty good audience. I said, well, screw the dark yellow, which is what the heavy population counties look like. And we just put it on the air. And to be honest with you, I planned it to be like a pirate station, the old pirate station that was off the coast of England. And because I was amazed by that, I was fascinated by that whole deal. You live out there, you're on the ship. I didn't know how miserable it was. I later found out. I would have never been on that damn ship. I'll tell you what a mess that was. But I didn't know that at the time. It was very romantic to me. So when we signed on the air, because of the fact we were in New Jersey, it's very hard to convey the obstacle that was to you people in Europe, because New York City really had a high opinion of itself. All the people in broadcast said, "I'm in New York." When I first hired Ross Britton, I said, "DJ on the air." He says, "I'm not a DJ. I'm a personality." I said, "Screw you. You're a effing DJ. What are you talking about?" But that's the attitude that these people in New York had. They were better than anyone else in the country, even Los Angeles. And for that reason, I went outside the market to get my staff for the most part. I didn't want them to have this better than thou attitude. And we never did talk much about the 5 boroughs. We just were Z100. We didn't do New York City weather. Most people that come to New York to program, they want to talk about, "Oh, I'm in New York City. I was out last night with one of the Yankees, or I was at the disco and all this." We didn't do that. We talked about Z100 and the music. That was it. And it was, for me, I've always programmed radio stations with a lot of momentum and energy. If you have thrust and you have energy, you can get away with mistakes. You can get away with playing some bad songs every so often, which I don't recommend that. But if it's, I look like I think of a train moving forward, and you're hanging on that train, and you can do the job as a DJ or a programmer or whether, I don't care what format you are. If you move it forward constantly, forward motion, and you keep that pacing. I mean, still to this day, when I'm doing the morning show in New York on CBS FM, I I think about, I'll catch myself slowing down or dragging just a little bit. What am I talking? What am I indulging myself talking about? I got a haircut. Nobody gives a flying flip about me getting a haircut. Unless there's a story to it, unless it's got a payoff. And that train, that radio station can be a train moving forward. And you got to keep it simple. They only understand simple. And that's sometimes why I talk in goofy things, you know, like I got one line, great radio stations are built on a keyboard. That's exactly what I do. I write out what the plan for the station is. I'll type it up. I don't have a typer anymore. Obviously, I got a computer, but I got the keyboard. And the same thing with these inflammatory words that we used back in the day on Z100. Z100 itself was different at the time because every station in New York was WNBC, WABC, and, you know, WKHK, all these. But all of a sudden, here comes something called Z100 from the top of the Empire State Building, Z100. And they go, what in the hell is that? They thought we separated ourselves from the rest of the radio stations. People would call up and say, what is this? I said, what do you mean? What is this? Well, is this a regular radio station? Or you? And they couldn't grasp it. They knew we played music, but we didn't play as many commercials. We played commercials from the day we went on the air. I wasn't going to be commercial free. We didn't play that many of them, but we played commercial. And it was just funny because I made it so simple. You know, the format was simple. I told the music guy, here's how we do it. One black record, one white record, one black record, one white record. Or you can, as you would say now, one pop record, one R&B record. And that was it. And the other part of the format was this. Here's what I told my disc jockeys. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to play more songs people like and not so many that they hate. And we're trying not to say stupid things. That's the format. That was it. And they say, okay. And I said, stupid things, the longer you talk, the bigger chance you have of saying something stupid. Talk so long. Yeah. All right. Scott, I'm going to take it now.
This is a masterclass for anyone who's a program director and does coaching with their team. But I do have to ask you this, because you were mercilessly taking the mick out of Larry Berger on the air for a long time, Larry Booger, as you called him.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you eventually made friends with him?
No, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. I never met him. I have no idea what kind of person he was. I do know from people who, the record company people who worked with him, is that he was all cut and dried. He was in his office and kept the door shut. Just the opposite from me. I do management by walking around, MBDA, whatever it is, walking around. MBWA. And I just go around. One of the things I believe in is, a lot of times a program director will only talk to other program directors or the disc jockeys. I get ideas from everybody in the station, everybody. And sometimes they're dumb questions. Dumb answers or dumb suggestions. But I got to tell you what, you learn. Because when I was a kid, I had this simplistic way of selecting personalities that I liked or songs that I liked. We all have that, but I try to keep that young attitude in my head, not because I'm older, but even when I was younger, I kept my childhood education of radio in my brain. And I see more people, and I've trained so many program directors over the years, and they just started out because I saw that they had that imagination. And the number one quality that I look for in people is passion. if you got passion. And the other thing is, you got to have a work ethic. You can't work for me long if you're a 3-time teller. If I got to tell you 3 times to do the same thing, I can't deal with you. I'm a one-time guy. I tell you one time, I expect it to get done, or come to me and tell me why it didn't get done, and I'll tell you how to get it done. You got to get it done. Doesn't do you any good to keep the ideas in your head. You have to get them out of your head and into action. That's simple.
Now, I've heard, Scott. Go on.
Let me do this one about Larry Berger because I know you like it. We had these little skits. We had a big announcement. And now, ladies and gentlemen, another adventure of little Larry Booger. Or we call it the Wimp Playhouse. We would talk about the competition in a funny way. Humor is like music. It communicates with everybody. And if it doesn't communicate with someone, you don't need to be communicating with that person anyway. That's how I feel. So we had different stories, and we'd write these lines. We had one day. And now, another day in the life of little Larry Booger. Today, Larry is on jury duty. So, and then I had, and Ross would do the other. Order in the court, order in the court. We have a young lady here today who became pregnant while her husband was away for 12 months. Oh, what does that mean? And then Ross would do the female voice. I said, "Come up here, young lady. Tell me what happened to you. Why is your husband suing you?" And she said, "Well, I didn't do it. I was in the middle of the night. My house is haunted, Your Honor. And in the middle of the night, a ghost came to me and impregnated me." What? He goes, "What?" And he says, "Is there anyone else in this courtroom today who's had sex with a ghost?" And little Larry Booger raises his hand. "I am, Your Honor. I've done that very thing." "You tell me you've had sex with a ghost?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said goat." And that was one of the very popular. We had all kinds of those things. We took the song 99 when the ratings came out and we were number 1. We defeated them. We did a song called 95. They were 95 on the dial. 95 dead baboons sitting in the living room, and there's Larry Booger and there's Jim Kerr, and that was pretty popular. Could you play 95 dead baboons?
Didn't you persuade everyone that WPLJ had closed down?
Yes. I found out that they were going to change their call letters from WPLJ to WWPR because we were beating them so bad they were going to change, and we're going to change the format. They're changing the call letters to Power 95, which is a very popular logo here in America. The station out in Los Angeles had become Power 105 or something like that. So I went on the air on a Friday and I said, "Boy, this is terrible." They were going to do it. I found out because a friend of mine works at the commission, the FCC, and we found out that they applied for a call letter change. So we went and I figured out what it was, WWPR. It had to be Power 95 because they have no imagination. They had to copy it from someone. So I went on the air and I said, "Well, I got some bad news. I love this station, Wimp Radio. But today, WPLJ announced that they're going to become worldwide Puerto Rican radio on January 3rd. And we actually interviewed the general manager who was moving in from Puerto Rico. And I got him, Juan Rodriguez. We had an exclusive interview. Nobody else had it, not even PLJ. We had the interview. And he said, "Yes, I think it's time." And he had the accent and all that. I don't do accents very well. And he said, "I think it's time to bring Puerto Rican radio to New York. They need their own radio station. So we're going to start on, see what I made it January 3rd because that way he had to live with it all through the holidays. And I said, well, I got a question for you. Why are you waiting until January? And why don't you just flip the switch right now and become Puerto Rican? He says, Scott, you should know there are no Puerto Rican Christmas songs. What would we do? And and believe it or not, it made enough sense where the station threatened to sue us if we didn't retract that statement. Anyway, it worked out really well. We had a call from a lady that morning who was the buyer for Coca-Cola and wanted to know if it's true. Of course it's true. We wouldn't spread rumors like that. She said, well, I got to cancel my whole schedule over there. I can't let that go on. We already have our Spanish audience covered. So it worked out. They were very upset about that. So.
Now, a rumor has it, Scott, that you don't like working with consultants, and there's a few consultants in the room here. So, what would you like to say to them?
Well, good luck. I just don't enjoy it because usually. What happens is when a station has a dip in the ratings, and let's face it, there's very few dependable radio rating systems around the country. So many people react. They fire their program director, fire their morning show. You got to let it go. You got to let it breathe for a minute because there's a lot of statistical errors in that. Yeah, I can actually tell you by listening to a station how it's going to do because I'm a listener. And I still enjoy great radio. And I just think there has to be one voice. I'd rather have a mediocre program director than a consultant and a program director and a general manager and everybody. I look for consistency. Too many people zigzag and change things around. They change this morning show. They change that morning show. You have to let it breathe a while till you get where you're going. When you find out it's not working, then you can make some changes. You take suggestions from a consultant, maybe of that. I mean, but you just hire a good program director and let him work.
Well, I'm going to personally thank you, Scott, because for the past 40 years, I've been nicking ideas from you and using them all over the place. And you're a true original. By the way, at the beginning of all this, I said to the audience, do you want to ask Scott a question? No one put their hands up because I think they're frightened to ask you a question. But if there is anyone, does anyone want to ask? Thomas from Pure Jingles.
I got one to take one. I got time to take one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this better be good. Okay, I feel the pressure. You talked about how you planned the radio station, Scott. You already talked a little bit about the clock, how it worked, right? A pop song, an urban song, a rock song, and so forth. Could you tell us some of the secrets of Z100 from the early days? How the station was like clock technology-wise programmed, and maybe some takeaways, from those programming rules from those days that still apply today in any market. Thank you.
Well, I honestly believe that 99.9% of those rules still apply. The good radio doesn't change. You have to have compelling content in the morning and then shut the hell up the rest of the day. But when you do say something, don't say something stupid. Too many disc jockeys work too hard to be clever. And all you have to do is open up just a little bit. People like to know a little bit about you, but not too much. You got it's a special balance. The clock has always been the same. It's very simple. Try not to play two like-sounding songs back to back. I mean, it's become, most of those secrets are public now. I mean, with corporate radio and the way it goes and national program directors and consultants, everybody knows they all have the same ideas and the same services and all that. I just think in our particular, in the morning in New York, I still play almost every song up tempo. We grade all the songs 5 points, and you got a fast song is a 5, and and you go down and you get a draggy Adele ballad, you got a 1. Yeah, if it's a huge song, you got to play it, but I would surround it with a 5 and a 4. keep the tempo up. Unless you're a sleepy, love song station. And you categorize, everybody knows how to code a song, I would hope. If it's a song that has a certain dance feel to it, you don't want to play 2 dance songs in a row, I don't think, unless you're a dance station. That's pretty simple. I hope that helps you.
Scott, it's been a pleasure. You're a true one-off in this industry, and the industry is far better for having you in it. And I hope you stay in it for as long as you can and as you want to. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Shannon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. God bless you. And good luck to the consultants.
And now, Scott, you can go and play golf. You said, when I said we set this up, you said, well, I play golf on a Sunday morning.
Already got my shoes on.
It's been a pleasure, Scott. Thank you.